So those holidays in Spain are terrible, aren't they? But anyway, official word from the Ukraine when you're talking about the war and the soldiers is that it has lost only 10,000 men due to this conflict in Russia. The Russians claim Ukraine's lost 500,000 men. So who's telling the truth? We need to believe that the real number is somewhere in between, because Russia is always going to give the worst scenario.
Yeah.
And the Ukraine is going to give the best scenario. So to see where the truth pendulum is swinging, we need to look at the headlines over the last few weeks that have appeared in the press. So at the beginning of April, Zelensky signed into law the lowering of conscript age from 27 to 25 years of age. At the moment, the average age of a Ukrainian soldier is 42 years old. So this law will not only lower that average age, but will open the door for more soldiers being forced to fight on the front lines. Because a lot of people don't want to go.
Yeah.
As Ukraine is under martial law and it's currently in place, Ukraine forbids men between the age of 18 to 60 from leaving the country. So we need to ask ourselves if conscription age could be lowered even further towards 18, you know. On the 12th of April, it was reported that Denis Maluska, his Ukrainian justice minister, he spoke out and wants to send convicted murderers to the front line. All these convicted murderers that are in the prisons, he said, we can empty the prisons out, send the convicted murderers. His justification for this is that they're used to killing. So for them, it'll be easier to kill, and they'll be better at it than the current soldiers who are on the front line. But him saying this is also a slap in the face, I think, to all the families of the fallen. As the bloke is saying that these criminals would make better soldiers than the actual soldiers. What does that say about the men in Ukrainian military? I ask. Are they really that bad, or are they, are they so bad that the convicted murderer automatically is going to know more than what they do? Dmytro Kuleba, he confirmed, he's the foreign minister of Ukraine, confirmed that consular assistance, this is recently, consular assistance to Ukrainian men abroad will be suspended for those between the ages of 18 and 60. So if you left the Ukraine, you wouldn't get any assistance in the consuls around the world. That means renewal of passports, supply of documents like marriage certificates if you needed these documents. Problems arising from the law in the country that you're in. Normally you get hold of your own consulate to try and sort that out. He says that if the men can't support Ukraine in its hour of need, then Ukraine can't help them.
Yeah.
Of course. We have to open parentheses here. This does not apply to the super rich in Saint-Tropez or in Monaco, or his family. His family have fled Ukraine. So there you have it. The one side is the headlines coming out of the press, and they're out of the neutral press, is places like the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
It isn't a heavy press.
No, I know what you're saying, yeah.
heavy Russian press, and also it isn't, of course, the Ukraine Pravda. Well, actually, it was Ukraine Pravda that said 10,000 losses of the soldiers for the Ukrainian soldiers, which means that the Ukraine Pravda is not all that Pravda. If you look at the rest of the world's press, and it strikes me that if there were only 10,000 soldiers lost by the Ukraine, they wouldn't be having to jump through hoops like they are doing now to get extra men in. And getting young. I think soon they're going to be conscripting women as well. I heard that, just in the air. But over to you on that. Over to you on that one.
Well, I mean, in a time of war, the first casualty of war is truth. What do we believe? It is a. I mean, what we've covered before, we say, but it's a very, very sad state of affairs. However, we've got to this point here. Men dying anywhere. I mean, when you're talking about sending people to war anywhere, it's a heavy decision to make. I mean, I believe that even Margaret Thatcher over the Falklands War was very heavy-hearted about it. I mean, that could be propaganda as well. I don't know. When you're sending anyone to war, it should be the one thing you don't want to do. Like I said in the previous podcast today, what we've just done, we've alluded to that, of the cheering, and it's not even your own men, your own nationality you're having killed or helping to be killed. It is a. We know that Ukraine have problems. It doesn't add up. Oh, we're winning this war, but we're running out of men. Well, it's one thing or another. But you could be winning the war, but you're still, we fought a good football game, but unfortunately we lost on penalties. It is a. We are now at the stage where Ukraine are desperate. They keep asking for more money. What's ever happened to his money and his wealth, I do not know.
Money is not going to solve anything.
No, you can throw as much. We all know that you can throw as much money as you want at a problem. It's how you use it. Any resources.
As the Ukrainians themselves have said.
I mean,
it's not going to change anything on the front.
Well, actually, I mean, this is it. Armchair generals talk about size and weapons and everything else. Real generals, good generals, talk about logistics. You can have so many people at the front. How do you keep them supplied? What do you keep them supplied with? I mean, it's bullets don't necessarily win war. I know it's a strange thing. Bullets and missiles won't necessarily win the war. And given that Russia probably do still have almost infinite amount of resources, I'm afraid we are now at the point where I don't know how easy or difficult it is to actually prompt negotiation for peace. I think we are now at the stage, for the sake of the world now, for the sake of our pockets, if you like, being totally on a pragmatic view on the ground, but for the sake of the world, where it's all going, to pursue peace. At least make the opening. Put Putin in a situation. Our next stage will be, what's happening in Ukraine. What the next stage can be, President Putin. Isn't it time we all sat around the table and worked this one out? Shout at each other over the table. I mean, I don't know how easy or difficult that is. I don't know the situation. We're not in Europe anyway. I don't know the mood across European people. I mean, yes, the media, we all know Ukraine. Okay. You can see Russia as a threat. I personally don't think Russia are going to suddenly go on a rampage across Europe. I don't buy that.
No.
Might. I'm not saying what Russia are doing is right, but I don't see them going on a rampage.
No.
I could see, if we're not careful, conflict escalating in Eastern Europe. don't forget there are still tensions amongst other Eastern European countries, and I'm not going to go into that now. Yeah, I think now the time is coming that we've got to stop with saber rattling. You're going to keep putting more and more resources into it. You're going to be training older and younger men to die for Ukrainians, and the Russians are dying as well. Let's not forget. Yeah. I dare say there are Russians who are fighting on the front who don't want to be there, as I said before. We've got to think about what we're going to be doing for humanity's sake now. And it's obvious the war is going nowhere. I mean, at best it's a draw. One side is probably winning, and it's not the side that everyone's supporting, it would appear. I mean, the next escalation that Ukraine will have to do, and we know they've got the missiles to do it, is actually start hitting targets in Russia. But we all know where that could end up.
They are starting to do that.
Yeah, well, that's the next stage. Yeah.
The US has sent them longer range missiles.
Yeah.
And I believe Germany, no, the UK is sending them longer range missiles. If that happens, I mean, at the moment, Ukraine is getting the border regions just on the side of the border regions.
Yeah.
But then they're starting to go after oil camps, oil fields.
Yeah.
You know, and if it gets too much, then you know Putin is gonna raise the stakes a little bit and send some heavy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, as I've often said, the biggest wonder is there's still Ukraine left. Yeah. I mean, it's very sad. I still feel sorry for Ukrainians on the ground there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not waving a flag for Russia or Putin, but I'm ultimately I'm a pragmatist. When I'm looking at it logically, I mean, I think Russia will get the territories they seek. The poor Ukrainians have always been, in their entire history, whenever they get a bit of independence, something happens. I mean, ultimately now, the reality of it all is Ukraine, heart and soul, is now owned by others. It's either going to be owned by Russia or it's going to be owned by the US and Western Europe. That's the realities. I can't believe people are chucking money into Ukraine for total... It's not humanitarian reasons. I just can't believe that. I mean, yeah, we all know somebody's got to rebuild the country.
Yeah, well, so who's going to get those contracts? Hey.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. So I now see. I mean, Ukraine on a loser now, one way or another. If they win, they've lost. If they've lost, what? Okay. If you now hit the table now, what do they lose? They lose the eastern and southern part, which they've always treated badly anyway. We all know that. Yeah. Maybe it's time that we all have to accept we've got to cut our losses. It's not appeasement with Russia, because I mean, I don't know. You're not going to empower Putin. The one thing Putin does not want is a war with the West, because he'll lose that. Putin will know that he'll lose. If NATO actually woke up, and the US, or US especially NATO, but woke up, decided to go for it, there wouldn't be a Russia anymore, or Russia would be decimated, probably.
Well, you know, I think NATO needs to understand that all of its members are with limited resources these days.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't that much money left in the kitty to replenish what has already been spent.
Yeah.
So you know, we can talk about the British Army, you know, which is hardly any soldiers. The ships, the ships are constantly breaking down. The aircraft carriers don't have aircraft on them because they have to borrow them. You know, and there aren't enough sailors to man the ships to navigate them in the high seas. You know, so it's the British Army itself, which is traditionally reckoned to be one of the most powerful, strong.
I think it's highly trained. I think your average British squaddy, is well trained. I mean, they say they're worth 6 of most other people. One squaddy is probably very professional in their approach. If you've met any, I mean, yeah, we've all met some. We've all met a few water middies as well. But are probably highly trained. You always know the good people have been in the army because they never talk about their exploits. They're the good ones. Yeah. When they go into, I mean, okay, they normally sometimes end up in prison because they have different problems as well, mental problems. I mean, which is another issue we've covered before. But yeah, I mean, yeah, across Europe, the talk is now getting onto a war footing. Yeah, we're going to have a war by 2027 or something. I don't know the latest timescale they're planning for it. I mean, cool. It's a pity they don't predict other things in the world that accurately. But I mean, yeah, what is going to be the next one? Yeah.
More recently, Kim Jong-un has been quite vocal.
Yeah.
Speaking to the US, saying, you know, watch out, sunshine, because I'm still here.
Well,
he tested his rockets recently. You know.
I seem to remember there was a certain president quite recently. They went and shook his hands and managed to cool it all down a little bit. I'm not saying it solved the problem.
No.
Well, I seem to remember that.
It.
Yeah. Which well, okay, it's what you can hope, all you can hope to do sometimes. Yeah. I mean, what would be the strategy if it all kicked off? Would you take out North Korea first to show you're willing to do it? Yeah.
The present administration, I'm sure, will send in Dennis Rodman again to try and sweeten Kim Jong-un. You don't know if you know Dennis Rodman. He was the basketball player. American basketball player. Was one of Kim Jong-un's few friends, and he's always free. He was always free to go and come back from North Korea at will. You know, it's Dennis. You know,
go in and get received. DMZ.